So if we begin with part C, we're redoing parts A and B, okay? But we're assuming that Intel pays a year-end dividend of $1 per share, okay? So it's paying a dividend of $1 per share. So we go back. If we're paying $1 a dividend per share, but we've shorted these stocks, remember, these stocks are stocks we've sold. We have sold these stocks. We have sold 500 shares of Intel, okay? So now this $1 of dividend, we must pay it because the concept of selling shares or shorting shares, we borrow these shares, we sell them, and then when the price is right or when we find it appropriate, we buy the shares back and we return them to the person that we borrowed them from. Okay, so we borrow the shares, we sell them, and then after a while we buy them back from the market and we return them to the person that we borrowed them from. So what happened here is that Intel paid $1 dividend per share while we had shorted these stocks. So I borrowed these shares from someone, I shorted them. During that time, the original shareholder, the person who I borrowed these shares from, he earned a $1 dividend per share. So I need to pay him what he earned back. He earned that $1 per share dividend. I need to pay him that $1 per share dividend back because I borrowed that share from him. But however, I've shorted 500 shares. So I need to pay him $1 dividend per share for 500 shares. That means I need to pay him $1 per share times 500 shares. I need to pay him $500. Okay? So my rate of return is like it was before, minus 500 because I've shorted minus 500 shares. I multiply that by the change in price like I was doing before. But now I have something included extra, which is I need to pay $500. So I have a new cost, which is the dividend on the borrowed shares. That is $500. So I subtract that as well because I'm paying 500 over my initial investment, which is my initial margin, which is $15,000. So I can calculate for the three cases now. Case number one, the Intel stock was selling a year from now. It was selling at $44. So if the price is $44, I have an increase of $4 from 40, which is the current price, to 44, which is the price 1 year from now. So a $4 increase in price. So I replace delta P by $4. So here we go. Minus 500. I've shorted 500 shares. I multiply that by the $4 increase in the price, minus the $500, the dividend that I have to pay the original shareholder. And I divide that by $15,000, which is my initial margin. So I get minus 0.16, which is minus 16.67%. I do the same for the second case, which is the stock price 1 year from now is $40. So I have no change from now to next year. It was $40 now, and it will be $40 next year. So I have no change in prices. So delta P is 0, but I have to pay $500. So minus 500, which is the number of shares that I've sold, times 0, the change in price, minus 500, which is the dividend that I have to pay. Divide by the initial margin, $15,000, that is minus 3.33%. That is the rate of return if there is no change in the Intel share price. Now, in the third case, I shorted 500 shares at $40 per share. A year from now, the stock is selling at 36. So we have a decrease in the price of the stock from 40 to 36. So it dropped by $4. New minus old. So delta P is minus 4. I replace it. Minus 500, I multiply by delta P, the change in price, which is minus $4. And I subtract from that the $500 in dividend. Divide by my initial margin, I get 0.1, which is 10%. Okay? So we have redone part A. Redo parts A and B. We redid part A. Now we have to redo part B, which is if the maintenance margin is 25%, how high can Intel's price rise before you get a margin call? Keeping in mind that I have to pay $500 in dividends. Okay, I have to pay $1 dividend per share, and I have 500 shares that I shorted. So I get my old formula, which is this one. Maintenance margin is equal to the initial margin plus the proceeds from the sale of the stock minus QP over QP. Okay, but what do I add to it? It's the same figures. 0.25 is equal to 15,000 plus, which is the initial margin, plus the proceeds. I sold 500 shares at $40 per share, minus 500, which is the number of shares, times P. But what do I add to this? I have paid $500 extra in dividend. So it's the same thing, all of it, but I have an extra cost. I have an additional cost. Okay, so I have my initial margin, $15,000. I have my proceeds from the sale, from the initial shorting of the stocks, which is 500 stocks at $40 per share. Okay, and I have minus QP minus the number of shares, which is 500 times the price. And I subtract from that the $500 in dividend. And I keep my denominator as is, which is QP. And my maintenance margin is still 25%. Okay, that is what is given in part B. The maintenance margin is 25%. Okay, this is part B, of course. So it's 25%, which is 0.25. By cross multiplication, I cross multiply to get the price. It's $55.2 or higher to receive a margin call. So when the price of Intel reaches $55.2 or higher, I will get a margin call from my broker.